The legal entanglements of Sean P. Diddy Combs gives us the perfect opportunity to do a deep dive into what is at the root of what I consider a criminal conspiracy in the music industry, particularly involving rap music. If you've been asleep under a rock or somewhere and have not heard, there have been two explosive lawsuits filed against Diddy Combs, the founder of Bad Boy Records, one of the top guys at the top of the rap music industry. One by a young woman, now I think in her mid-30s or what, Cassie Ventura, a young woman that Diddy discovered when she was just out of high school at age 19. Diddy was 37 at the time. He signed her to a 10-album deal. She filed a lawsuit, I believe, in late November of this past year, accusing Diddy of grooming her for sex, providing her ecstasy, raping, beating her. Diddy quickly settled this lawsuit. And then in late February, a man, Rodney, Lil Rod Jones Jr., filed a really explosive lawsuit against Diddy. And this is in late February, accusing Diddy of sexually grooming him for gay sex, accusing Diddy of being involved in many shootings, accusing Diddy of having someone on his security staff and security team who cleaned up shootings and other criminal activity of Diddy and his artists. These allegations in these lawsuits are highly explosive, very interesting, and very enlightening about what's really going on in the hip hop industry. I think it's a criminal conspiracy. We're going to spend the next 2 days unpacking that, taking a look at just who Sean P. Diddy Combs is, but using Diddy as a window, as an outlet, as a set of binoculars to take an even deeper look at the entire hip hop industry, who's making money off of it, and why does it promote prison values and prison culture. We're going to do that for the next 2 days, starting today. Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I'm Jason Whitlock, your host. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's just going to be me and you as I unpack and try to season you up for some big picture ideas that I've hinted at and get talked about, but I'm going to try to tie it all together. Diddy and the shocking truth about hip hop is what we're going to spend the next 2 days talking about and discussing. This episode is brought to you by our good friends at Good Ranchers. Fall in love with beef, chicken, and seafood all over again by subscribing at goodranchers.com. Use my promo code FEARLESS to get a free $119 Heritage Ham plus $25 off any box with your subscription. Need you guys to start pounding that like button. If you're listening over Apple, we could certainly use the 5-star review. We'd love for you to write a review. Also, I would love for you to subscribe to blazetv.com. Use my promo code FEARLESS or blazetv.com/fearless and sign up for your subscription at Blaze TV. That's very important so that we can continue to bring you the types of shows we're going to bring you today and tomorrow, and we try to do every day. This show is called Fearless because we go where others fail to go. And let's start by taking a deeper look at Sean Combs, at Diddy, and how someone at the top of this music industry, of this musical genre, how could he be being accused of crimes this violent, this sadistic, this perverted? How could Sean Combs, how could Diddy be perhaps the Jeffrey Epstein of the rap music industry? Well, apples do not fall far from trees. Let's start there. Apples don't fall far from trees. So who was Diddy's tree? I just want to start there, provide us a little bit of background on Diddy Combs. His tree was Melvin Combs, his father. Melvin Combs was murdered in 1972 because of his involvement, most people believe, in a drug ring. He was a heroin dealer. There are multiple stories written about Melvin Combs, Diddy's father, being involved in a drug ring, and I believe in December of 1971, he gets arrested for his involvement in a drug ring. We researched, read the stories. In that story there, the 10 persons found guilty of operating a heroin ring, here's how they wrote about P. Diddy's father. The first person arrested in the roundup was Melvin Combs, who was later found slain. A quantity of narcotics and $45,000 in cash were found in his apartment. However, the indictment named Combs as a co-conspirator rather than a defendant, an indication he was prepared to turn government witness against the other defendants. This newspaper article basically alleges Diddy's father was a criminal and involved in the dealing of heroin, but he was also a snitch and perhaps a federal agent. Apples don't fall far from trees. Why is this important? And why are we having this conversation? And think about the Cat Williams interview and all the conversations we've been talking about on this show since the Cat Williams Club Shay Shay interview about how people are installed at the top of the industries, people that are compromised, people that are easily controlled, vulnerable people. So Diddy, at the time of his father's murder, was a 3-year-old child. His father, it heavily involved, according to all the articles, with Frank Lucas, Nicky Barnes, two high-profile, often discussed drug dealers from the 1970s. Many of you remember the movie American Gangster. Denzel Washington played the leading role. He played the character of Frank Lucas, who was a drug-dealing associate of Melvin Combs. Famous movie, obviously. Nicky Barnes, there's not, maybe they made a movie about Nicky Barnes at this point. I know I've seen plenty of documentaries or videos about Nicky Barnes on YouTube. He's another celebrated drug dealer that Diddy's father was connected to. And so he gets arrested in December, Melvin Combs does. He gets murdered at the end of January, just 2 weeks after going to court and creating the appearance that he was cooperating with law enforcement. The murder of Diddy's father, never solved, and many people believe never seriously investigated. Many people believe or suspect that he was an asset, a federal agent, someone who was controlled and installed. It's quite similar to Al Sharpton and how he has all these tax problems, but he never gets in trouble with the IRS. Everybody knows he's got all these tax problems, but he never gets investigated or in trouble with the IRS. It's because he's controlled. They have puppet strings on him. He owes this money. They can put him away at any time. And so he plays a certain role in American culture. He's the black race baiter that goes on TV and leads black people astray. That's his job. He's been installed. Think about all the people that allege that drugs, the CIA planted drugs in certain communities, certain black communities. Well, if you're planting drugs, you gotta have planters. You gotta have people you're working with. And so people talk about the 80s, but the movement and where drugs are sold, I believe that's always been highly controlled. And there's always someone like a Melvin Combs that the government or law enforcement or the puppet masters control. And then when he no longer serves a purpose, or when people figure out that he's a snitch, that's when they get assassinated and killed. And so in 1972, February 26th of 1972, Melvin Combs is assassinated sitting in a car, I believe, in Central Park. That is Diddy's father. So when you think about the incredible allegations that have been leveled against Diddy Combs, and you go, who would be involved in something like that? Who would be drugging women, beating women, manipulating men sexually, involving men in gay sex, hiring a security person who cleans up shootings and potential murders and other crimes? Diddy's a criminal, a common criminal. He's an apple that hasn't fallen very far from his tree, his father, Melvin Combs. So we need to start there with that understanding. We look at Diddy and we read these allegations and we go, oh my God, how? How? And this guy has been at the top of the music industry. This guy is involved with all these major companies. This guy has Revolt TV and basically was the backing for the Breakfast Club. This guy's an important mover and shaker and influencer in media, in music, in shaping the culture. A common criminal who a young woman sues, and within a couple of weeks, he settles instantly. That's generally an indication of like, whoo, I'm caught with my pants down. Let me cut this check and let me make this go away. And then someone follows right back in with even more salacious allegations about criminal activity that Diddy's involved in. How does that person end up at the top of the food chain in the music industry? Is it perhaps an indication that the entire music industry, particularly as it relates to rap music, is it all just a criminal enterprise? And who actually is benefiting the most? Who's financing this? This goes well beyond Diddy. He's certainly involved and he's certainly a major player. But everybody is a major player in this. It's not just Diddy. It's not just the stereotypical people you can think of. Oh, it's Diddy, it's Eazy-E, it's the guys from N.W.A. No. At the level that Diddy was operating and the crimes that he apparently was able to get away with for decades, this goes much higher. This isn't a group of boys from the hood. This is grown men in suits and in corporate America picking and choosing which boy from the hood are we going to use to exploit and push an agenda that benefits us. We're going to get to the bottom, or we're going to go deeper. We're going to try to give everybody a broader understanding of the shocking truth about hip hop and about its relationship with the prison industrial complex. I want to pause for a bit during this 2-day deal to walk you through a bit more context before we circle back to Diddy and these salacious allegations about him. I want to broaden the perspective and broaden the conversation, and that's what we're going to do after we take a short, small break. I want to broaden the conversation, remove the focus from Diddy. I wanted to try to explain to you who Diddy is, what tree he fell off of, and why that apple is involved in so much alleged poison and clearly is involved with spreading a poisonous mindset and a poisonous culture. But he's not the only one. And so we're going to broaden the conversation in just a moment. But guys, I want to talk to you. I'm excited about a new sponsor we have. Let's face it, after a night with drinks, me, you, we don't bounce back the way we used to, particularly at my age. And in the job or in the career and the role that I'm playing now, you guys know me, or I hope you do, that I'm not a big drinker, but I occasionally socially drink because it's part of my responsibility in terms of networking with people in meetings. And I've always been pretty much a lightweight when it comes to drinking. It doesn't take much to get me inebriated. And it doesn't take much, particularly at this age, for me not to be as sharp and as focused as I normally am the next day. I've got a solution. Z-Biotics. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol, a probiotic drink, is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink alcohol, it gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Z-Biotics produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you will feel your best tomorrow. You guys know I sit here and talk. I try to exercise each morning, and I'd say on average 6 days out of the week, I exercise first thing in the morning. If I go out socializing and have a few drinks, those are the days when I slip up because I don't feel my best waking up in the morning. That's where Z-Biotics helps me out. It helps me recover. Last week, I had some friends come in from out of town. I needed to socialize. I needed to get up and be sharp for this show. Z-Biotics had me. Go to Z-Biotics, that's ZBIOTICS.com/fearless to get 15% off your first order when you use Fearless at checkout. Z-Biotics is back with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/fearless. Use the code FEARLESS at checkout for 15% off. Thank you, Z-Biotics, for sponsoring this episode and for helping us have a good time and be able to socialize with our friends and wake up the next day ready to function at optimal level. Guys, trust me, this will help. It certainly helped me. You guys remember to go to fearlessarmyrollcall.com. You definitely want to be here for Roll Call 2.0. That's Saturday, June 1st. Go to our website. We got all the updates coming about who's all coming. This is going to be amazing. Don't you guys go anywhere. I'm going to broaden the Diddy conversation and talk about some historical stuff and just kind of unpack where hip hop is next. Hello, Fearless Army. I'm Jason Whitlock, your leader. I'm going to spend 2024 discussing growth and sacrifice. Hard times are here. Harder times are coming. What has stopped American growth and caused a regression in fundamental freedoms and values? A lack of sacrifice. Our ancestors sacrificed for our benefit. We have not sacrificed to protect the progress they died for. No sacrifice, no freedom. What impedes man's willingness to sacrifice? His ignorance, his perversion, his pride, his ingratitude, and his cowardice, his rejection of God. The Bible is a story about the power and the necessity of sacrifice. Sacrifice is the sun, rain, and fertilizer of growth. Growth is our life purpose. Grow in the knowledge, wisdom, fear, obedience, and reverence to the Most High. Growth requires sacrifice will be our theme for Roll Call 2.0 this summer, June 1, right back here in Nashville. We're excited to welcome you. Let me spend a minute explaining what GROWTH actually stands for us in the Fearless Army. The G is for game plan. In order to properly grow, it's essential we work from the strategic game plan spelled out in the Bible. The R, responsibility. As we grow as men, we understand and accept our responsibilities to God, family, and teammates. The O, ownership. We embrace ownership of our destiny. Outsiders do not determine our fate. The W, wisdom. We honor, value, and share the wisdom imparted to us by elders, coaches, and leaders. The T, trust. We must be worthy of trust. The reliability of a man's word defines him far more than popularity and material possessions. The H, humility. The reward for humility and fear of the Lord is riches and honor and life. That's straight from Proverbs 22:4. Come join us in Nashville as we talk about growth and sacrifice and how without sacrifice there will be no growth. Roll Call 2.0 right here in Nashville, Saturday, June 1st. Welcome back to our very special episode, Diddy and the shocking truth about hip hop. So we've established a little bit about who Diddy is, and he's in trouble, and he's being sued, and the allegations against him are really, really outrageous and paint a person like, wow, this is a gangster, a suited up, popular gangster. He's like no different than John Gotti. And you want, how? And how did someone like him get in this position? It's intentional. His father is a drug dealer and a snitch and is murdered when Diddy's just 3 years old. Diddy fits the profile for exactly what a criminal organization would want. He's the type of person that he's a backup dancer for Heavy D at age 19, 20, 21, whatever years old, and he's got good grades at Howard University, but this is a very compromised, insecure person who, again, based on the tree, it's like, wow, that apple will sell rotten based on the tree. And so here's where I want to start by broadening the conversation and moving a bit off of Diddy. I want you to understand why Diddy is installed and why he has been elevated and allowed to get away with a level of behavior and a level of alleged criminality that you're not supposed to be able to get away with. So the first concept you have to understand is stakeholders versus shareholders. It sounds easy to understand, but many people don't. Stakeholders are anyone who is impacted by the decisions made by a company. Shareholders are people who own stock in a company and participate in the profits. And so in this scenario, as it relates to American culture, as it relates to the music industry, you, me, we're stakeholders. We are impacted by the decisions that shareholders make. The shareholders are people that profit from whatever's popular in pop culture or whatever's being monetized in popular culture. They're the shareholders. You're a stakeholder. The culture that we all live in is decided by the shareholders. And so I'm going to walk you through who the shareholders are, the primary shareholders, who's making the decisions. And these two names that I'm going to drop, you will have heard them many, many times because people are talking about their outsized influence over everything globally. So the primary shareholders are BlackRock and Vanguard, two multinational investment companies that manage hedge funds worth trillions of dollars. BlackRock and Vanguard, multinational global corporations, investment companies that control trillions of dollars and decide what's going to be invested in, what's going to be allowed to have influence, what's going to be able to make money throughout. For this conversation, we'll just talk about American culture, but all of this has global impact because these are global corporations. And so BlackRock and Vanguard, they own the majority shares in the prison industrial complex. The largest prison company, a private prison company, is called CXW. I think they call it Core Civics. It used to be called Corrections Corporations of America. It used to be called Corrections Corporation of America. They do all the private prisons around the world, or a lot of them around the world. They profit off incarceration. They build jails for American citizens all around the world, for everybody, but for illegal immigrants. Again, there's profit to be made off of illegal immigrants coming into America and then being incarcerated because they're here illegally. There's money to be made off of that. There's money to be made off of turning an entire culture very criminal. That's how you feed the prison system. You make going to prison a rite of passage. You make it normal. You make criminals normal and respected figures throughout society and culture. That's how you feed the private prison industry. And BlackRock and Vanguard are the primary shareholders in CXW, Core Civics, the Corrections Corporations of America. Yeah, BlackRock, Vanguard. They own the prison industrial complex. They also own, guess what? They own the music industry. They own Sony Music. They own Warner Music. They own the Universal Music Group. And through Viacom, they own BET, VH1, and MTV. See how this works? You get that connection. BlackRock and Vanguard, multinational investment companies that manage trillions of dollars and basically decide what gets invested in, what gets promoted, what's allowed to be popular. And they have a large investment in private prisons. And so should we be shocked that the people that have a large investment in private prisons also have an investment in the music industry and the particular music genre that supports the prison industry? And so I'm giving you BlackRock and Vanguard, and I've told you you're a stakeholder, but they enlist or they grant shares to people to carry out their mission and their agenda. And so there are other shareholders. And maybe you own some BlackRock and Vanguard shares, but your job isn't to promote the prison industrial complex. And so they hand out shares to people that will carry out their duties. And so the first group I want to point out here, I'm going to label them the vanguard of shareholders. And these will be names that some of you are familiar with, some of you may not be familiar with. But this is the vanguard of shareholders. It's Rick Rubin, the guy with the beard. It's David Kenner. And hold on, don't let me hop over this. Rick Rubin, co-founder of Def Jam Records with Russell Simmons. He's considered the co-founder. Many people like me think he's the real founder. Russell Simmons is installed like a Diddy to be the face of Def Jam Recordings. You got to put a black face on this. And so Rick Rubin and Russell Simmons co-founded Def Jam Recordings. Jerry Heller, many of you may be familiar with that name. He's a co-founder of Ruthless Records with Eazy-E, the whole N.W.A. deal. That's Jerry Heller. He went into partnership with Eazy-E on the West Coast with Ruthless Records and N.W.A. This next name is a name you may not be all that familiar with, but his name is David Kenner. He was a prosecutor, a district attorney, who went into partnership with Suge Knight, you guys know Suge Knight from Death Row Records, and Harry O. Some of you may know that name, but Harry O, major drug dealer on the West Coast in California, who got a major life sentence and was sitting in prison, but he was still a shot caller. He was that type of major player while in prison. And David Kenner was the glue between Suge Knight, Harry O, and the startup of Death Row Records. And then the final person is Lyor Cohen, chairman and CEO of Warner Music Group. He got his start with Def Jam as well, but then became the chairman and CEO of Warner Music Group. I call these guys the vanguard of shareholders. And then their job is to go out and recruit and partner up with black guys that I will call the BlackRock. But I don't want to get there yet. I want to give you an indication of how the vanguard of shareholders in this whole criminal enterprise of hip hop music. I want to share a clip of Jerry Heller that I think represents the thinking of the vanguard. So I want to play this clip. Yes, it's the first side. Yeah, play that.
I said, what do you call the group? He said, N.W.A. And I said, what's that stand for? No whites allowed? And he said, that's pretty close. And he played me Straight Outta Compton. Straight Outta Compton, Ice Cube, in a band called With Attitude. And I said, whoa. I said, this is everything that Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy would have done if they wouldn't have been assassinated. And I said, this is going to be more important to race relations in this country since Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy. So the reason that I was able to relate to it was I had been around for a while. I had hung out with the Stones and the Beatles, and I saw the rebellion of the Stones. I saw the poetry of Gil Scott-Heron. I saw the anger and angst of our inner cities. that the Black Panthers had, and I had represented several of the Panthers and made their book deals, and this was all cut into one. So I called a meeting of all my clients the next day at this mob restaurant called Bartoni's, and I told them I couldn't represent them anymore, that I was going in business with this guy, Eric Wright.
But he called his cronies, he's at a mob restaurant, and says, hey guys, I'm going into business with Eazy-E. So he, at a mob restaurant, and I'm putting thoughts, words in the mouth. Jerry Heller is dead now, and so I apologize if this is incorrect. But to me, it sounds like he called a bunch of criminals and said, I found a better criminal to go into a criminal business with, Eazy-E. And he has said, and this is why I really wanted to play the clip, I think it's one of the most incredible things I've ever heard anyone ever say with a camera in front of their face. And an allegedly smart or, well, I don't know if he's got any integrity or whatever, but the man just said, and Jerry Heller's passed now, but yeah, a crazy MF named Ice Cube, and the group is called, and he said the N-word with the hard R, we'll bleep this out, with attitude, that's what he said. And then his next statement was, this is what Dr. Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy would have done if they weren't assassinated. He said, this is everything they would have done if they weren't assassinated. This is at the foundation of gangster rap, of the rap music industry. Someone who thinks the vanguard of shareholders in this enterprise thinks N.W.A, ninjas with attitude, and a crazy MF, that this is what Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy would have been doing. Make it make sense. This is a group of, in my view, immoral criminals who exploit history and exploit anything and go out and find young people, young compromised people, young desperate people, to put them in place, install them to be the face of immoral and a criminal operation, and pat them on the back. And you know what, you guys from N.W.A, and yeah, that song, F the Police, blah, blah. Y'all are doing exactly what MLK and Bobby Kennedy would have wanted y'all to do. And people go for it. This is incredible. This is at the heart. This is who BlackRock and Vanguard, these multinational globalist corporations, these are the guys that they give shares to. They make them shareholders. And then those shareholders then go out and say, well, we got to get some black guys. And so we'll call them the BlackRock of the shareholders. And I've already dropped a couple of their names. Harry O, Suge Knight, Diddy, Jay-Z. These are the shareholders of this, and there's others, but these are what I consider the highest profile and the guys that they really, really went in partnership with. And I want to talk about Harry O specifically, because what David Kenner and Suge Knight and Harry O cooked up with Death Row Records and the West Coast is at the heart of this entire conversation. And so I want to read a couple of excerpts from a book written by a guy named Ben Westhoff. Ben Westhoff wrote a book called Original Gangsters, and it's the backstory of Ice Cube, N.W.A, Eazy-E, the whole West Coast rap deal. And before I elaborate and read you some of these excerpts, I just want you to understand about Ben Westhoff and the book Original Gangsters, and he tells some truth in the book, but he puts a positive spin on something so poisonous, so vile, so destructive that it's mind-blowing. That, and again, like Original Gangsters is a foundational piece that leads to the N.W.A movie that further celebrates and defines people that sold absolute poison to black people and to American culture. We celebrate them. And I want to make a clear point here about the control of narrative and how important it is. And these shareholders that I'm pointing to in Diddy and Suge Knight and Jay-Z and Harry O, they help control the narrative. And this is where the left, the secular elites, this is where they kill us and dominate evangelicals and Christians and conservatives. They kill us with narrative. And again, I know you know that. They kill us with storytelling. We, Christian conservatives, we're horrible storytellers. We sit around, we got the facts on our side. We got the facts. And so here's the facts. If you don't put the facts into a compelling narrative, it's a tree falling into the woods. No one hears it. And so until we come to grips with that storytelling and narrative is important to mix with facts. If you understand the Bible and its brilliance, it's a book of facts told in the most compelling narrative ever written. And so, unless we want to, if we really want to disrupt the demonic evil control, the assault on truth, if we want people to deal with the facts, you gotta find people and invest in ways to tell those stories in a compelling way. Just the mundane presentation of facts is not going to work. You want to know why Rush Limbaugh was so successful? It's because he knew how to spin a story with the facts. And that's why he was so hated. It's because they knew he could compete with them as a storyteller. And that's why they set out to destroy him and his reputation. But we just want to sit around, we got the facts, we got the facts, we got the facts. If you don't tell them in a way that connects with people, it doesn't matter. They hire storytellers. And that's what this whole rap thing is about, telling stories in rhyme. It has an impact, tell it in a compelling way, pulling people's heartstrings, make people emotional. That's what this music does. They're crushing us with storytelling and narrative. But so this Ben Westhoff, again, some of his book is factual, but his narrative about gangster rap and all that, it's awful. And it's a celebration of the wickedness and a pollution of American culture that is harming us right now. And you stakeholders need to understand these decisions impact you. Let me continue to elaborate. Let me go some quotes here that explain to you Harry O and David Kenner and this alliance with Suge Knight and Death Row Records. After being introduced to Suge, David Kenner became Death Row's lawyer despite little experience in the music industry law. Over the years, he saved Suge from many a legal pickle. It's largely owing to his skills that Suge was able to avoid long-term prison sentences for many alleged crimes. You partner a criminal and a thug and a gangster, Suge, with a lawyer. That's what he's describing. And he's describing it in celebration. He's not playing, this is wicked. Suge Knight is a depraved criminal, violent criminal. Hey, let's partner him with David Kenner and let's make a bunch of money and let's put out this poisonous music and he'll keep Suge out of jail. Suge's now in jail. He ran over a guy in a car on tape. But let me continue from the original Gangsters book. Harry O's lawyer was David Kenner. So Harry O's sitting in prison with a life sentence for dealing drugs. His lawyer is David Kenner, former prosecutor and criminal defense attorney, drawn to headline-grabbing cases, who excelled at defending alleged drug kingpins. He had a habit of getting very close to his clients and getting involved in their lives. Final quote here. Kenner brought Suge to the prison where Harry O was incarcerated, and the men got down to brass tacks. Suge told me we could get a 50-50 partnership for about $1.5 million, Harry O said. This is a criminal enterprise. The music industry. A man is sitting in prison on a life sentence and cutting deals to expand his influence or establish his influence in the music industry. And a man is sitting in prison for dealing drugs, life sentence. He's cutting a deal to enter into the music industry and influence the music industry. And we wonder why the music is a celebration and defense of prison culture. This is not an accident. This is on purpose. The shareholders, the major ones, BlackRock and Vanguard, Rick Rubin, Liar Cohen, David Kenner, Jerry Heller, they know who they're partnering with and getting in bed with. A group of criminals are partnering with other criminals. They're partners in crime. This entire operation. It reminds me of one of my favorite scenes, one of the great scenes in the movie The Godfather. The Godfather is my favorite movie of all time. And when I think about this, I think the guy's name was Don Zalucci. And if you remember, if you watch The Godfather, the heads of the families in the mafia in the 1920s, 30s, they had this big meeting. Don Corleone's there, everybody's there, all the major heads. And this Don Zalucci gets up because they're talking about moving into dealing drugs. And the mob had been reluctant to move into dealing drugs because it brought a level of police investigation they were uncomfortable with. They knew the harm that drugs did. It's like the guys, let's stick to gambling and prostitution and this, booze. Let's stick to that. But they're realizing like, hey man, if we don't wrap our arms around this drug thing, there's going to be other criminals who will have more power than me. This drug thing is taking off. And so the Don Zalucci gets up and says, something along the line, I'm going off memory here, of I don't want it in schools. I don't want it near children. We control it. And he ends it by saying, we leave it to the dark people. They're animals anyway. They've lost their souls or something like that. Basically, the movie The Godfather said, you know what? This poisonous drug deal, we're going to give it to the black people and we're going to try to contain it. But like what they don't understand, or what they didn't understand then, and what this whole music criminal conspiracy doesn't understand, once you let a toxin, a poison loose, you're not going to control where it's going to spread. It's outside your control at that point. And so the guys that were sitting around in the 20s, 30s, and 40s and saying, yeah, we're going to control this drug thing and we're going to keep it among the dark people and they've lost their animals, So we look up in 2024, it's like, oh, where's the meth problem? Where's the fentanyl problem? Where's all these other drug calamities? It's spread everywhere. See, that Godfather scene, that's a group of shareholders making a decision that will impact stakeholders, you and me. And the music industry sat around and made some decisions as shareholders that has affected us as stakeholders. We live in a polluted culture. So those of you with memories, rap music was it was fun party music in the early 1980s. In the mid 1980s, it was kind of defined by being socially conscious and educational. I mean, KRS-One would put out songs that would be better than anything you were taught in school. Public Enemy would put out songs that would make you feel confident and pride and whatever. And then the shareholders said, we can use this music to promote the prison industrial complex. We can use this music to criminalize the culture and get more people in prison. And so the Jerry Hellers and the Easy E's and the Suge Knights and the Harry O's and the David Kenners, they partnered up to execute this plan. And the influence of rap started to spread everywhere. And the next thing you know, the entire culture is changing. And this is, again, when I talk about the poison spreading everywhere, rap is a global phenomenon. This isn't just contained to the ghettos. And so when they go pick out a Tupac Shakur, a Ice Cube, a Ice-T, a Jay-Z, or you know, because they all got 50 Cent, they all got the same stories. Yeah, I was dealing drugs, I dropped out of school, I had committed this crime or that crime, small level stuff, and next thing you know, somebody is, you're a rapper, and we've signed you to a deal. And there's a certain style and brand of music we want you to make. And so you find a Diddy, father murdered when he's 3 years old, father a criminal and a snitch. You find, oh, like Diddy, and Diddy's a backup dancer for Heavy D. This is how, when I talk about the breakdown of family and all the collateral damage, and people want to pretend like this baby mama culture and the breakdown of family has no impact. When I read these allegations about P. Diddy, and when I read like how sexually fluid he is and how comfortable he is allegedly sexually abusing young people, children, where does that come from? Well, that likely comes from a young boy having his father murdered when he's 3 years old, living in a very compromised situation and living in a community that is dominated by dysfunctional and destroyed families. That man is vulnerable, and if I had to speculate, the reason he's comfortable, according to these allegations, sexually abusing boys and girls, men and women, comfortable killing or shooting people, according to these allegations, it's because of how he grew up and probably because of what happened to him. And trust me, the people at the top, the people that make decisions in the best interest of BlackRock and Vanguard and the other globalists who want to manipulate and destroy the global culture, they know Hey, these are the people that fit the profile. These are the people we can install in critical positions. These are the industries we can support to reach our goals. To have going to prison be a rite of passage. And so you pick out a Notorious B.I.G., you pick out a Jay-Z, you pick out a Tupac, you pick out young, desperate men who haven't been discipled in a proper family structure. And you wave a little gold in front of them, and a Jerry Heller tells them, you're doing exactly what MLK and Bobby Kennedy would have been doing. And they say, yeah, give me that money, because I ain't never had none. And I'm not really qualified to do anything else. And I don't really have an interest. And plus, y'all have made it so cool and so respectable. I'm so popular in my community. And when I go to nightclubs, women just throw themselves at me. And so they've just made it very alluring and it's the thing to do. And so what happened? Let me unpack some stats here that show you where we were in terms of incarceration in private prisons around the mid-1980s, and then show you where we are now and how quickly things changed. And so one of the first things I want to reference is core civic revenue. The CXW, I want to talk about their revenue. It went from $17 million in 1987 to 1997, $460 million in revenue. And today, Core Civic, Corrections Corporations of America, it's nearly $2 billion in revenue. This plan is working. This music industry plan is working. I want to reference a few other stats here. Give me a second. I'm sorry. This is a lot. I want to go in 1987, the year before N.W.A. released Straight Outta Compton. The number of inmates incarcerated in privately operated correctional facilities worldwide was 3,100. By 1998, that number had risen to 132,000. That's an increase of 4,158%. Let me give you another one. In 1995, more than 5.4 million adults, approximately 1 out of every 46, were under some form of correctional supervision, according to the Bureau of Justice of Statistics. This period also saw the nation's prison and jail population soar from 750,000 in 1985 to over 1.7 million by 1997, marking an astonishing 127% increase. I've already told you about core adjusted for inflation, the total operating costs of U.S. prisons, both federal and state, soared from $3.1 billion in 1980 to over $17 billion by 1994, marking an increase of nearly 550%. And finally, according to a 2012 Vera Institute Justice study, the number of those incarcerated has increased 700% over the last 4 decades. The cost to taxpayers, nearly $40 billion. This is incredible. Their plan is working. You have to corrupt people's minds in order for this to be acceptable and par for the course. I don't think people fully understand the power of music, and I talk about it all the time on this show. I'm trying to convey, if you want to write something on people's hearts, if you want to change people's hearts, music is the perfect tool. And again, that's why roll call and what we're trying to do with music and partnering with John Rich and trying to come together and music and food and celebrate and change people's core and heart and to get people to understand what it is, the poison, the toxin we're pouring into ourselves with this criminal music that is designed, specifically designed and manipulated to make you think criminality is the proper route, and landing yourself in a tiny prison cell is a rite of passage and normal. This is by design. The shareholders, they're all profiting from this. No one should be surprised. It's just think about how we've normalized drug cultures and drug dealers, and how drug dealers are now respected members of communities. And again, there's nothing you can put on a rap resume better than, yeah, I was a drug dealer. And man, if you got shot a few times like 50 Cent, even better. Just go back to what I said about Harry O. Sitting in prison, life sentence. And I want to be clear about Harry O. I want to make sure y'all, Donald Trump let Harry O out of prison right before he left office in 2020 or 2021. Harry O was out free. Now, the President of the United States made that happen. That should tell you how important Harry O is to the culture that's being established. I'm not saying that Donald Trump let him go so that he could go out and finish his work. I don't know what Trump's agenda, justification. My suspicion is, because I thought about it in real time when it actually happened, is like, it speaks to how criminalized our culture is that the politicians all know now. You better be good with these prison gang leaders. You better have relationships with them, because, and again, it's no different than you go to these South American third world countries and Colombia and all these countries ruled by drug cartels, and the politicians have to be on good terms with the major drug dealers and their families and cartels. Same thing's happening here. But Harry O, go back to he's a founding member, the shot caller. They have to come to prison to cut a deal to do Death Row Records. And Death Row Records is probably the most poisonous force to ever be unleashed in the music industry. And topping Ruthless Records, which, you know, was before Death Row. And that was a deal cut by Harry O. And we wonder why the music celebrates drug dealers. And I want to show you as a stakeholder how this impacts you and how it impacts the culture. If you take someone, I'm not doing this to beat up on Stephen A. Smith. I just want you to understand. But take someone like Stephen A. Smith, who is making $10, $12, $15 million a year, sitting on ESPN yapping about sports. Why is this same person, who my narrative is, he's been installed. He's no different than Diddy and all these other people, compromised, incompetent, and installed. Why is he sitting in interviews bragging about how much he owes to drug dealers? Why is he exaggerating, flat out lying about, I was untouchable. The drug dealers could spot how great I was going to be. I'm untouchable. Why is he doing that? Because we've created a culture, and he knows it, because he's a part of these shareholders that have decided that this criminal element is going to be front and centered and made important. He's making sure he's good with them. He's celebrating drug dealers. I was untouchable. The drug dealers looked out for me. I owe my success to drug. This is what he has said on record. You would think that the money that he has would buy him the privilege of honesty. Of, hey, I can stand on my own 2 feet, I got enough money. But it actually locks you in and locks you down. See, we have this thing, and I this is this is one of, I hate to say this, I don't want to sound boastful. This is one of my better original thoughts. You don't get FU money in the media space, in the entertainment industry, in corporate America. You don't get, there's no such thing as FU money in those industries. What you get is F me money. It's complete different. We love it. Stephen A. Smith, he doesn't have FU money. He's got F me money. They're allowed to do anything they want to do to Stephen A. Smith because he took that money. An unqualified person was installed and handed all this money, and they've told, hey man, when we tell you to push this vaccine or to push this criminal element or to bend over on this couch so that I can enter you, you have to do it. It's F me money, not F you money. And that's what they do to these young people, the shareholders, BlackRock and Vanguard, and then their next level of shareholders, Rick Rubin, Jerry Heller, blah, blah. And then their next level of shareholders, Diddy, Suge. They turn around and say, okay, we control you, we've given you money. Now we get to do whatever it is we want to do with you. And so we cannot sit here and pretend like we're surprised by any of this. And so I'm going to walk you down memory lane a little bit and just, they were telling us this 30 years ago. People that were labeled coons and sellouts were telling us 30 years ago what this industry was about and what it was going to do to American culture. And so they have a very simple game plan, the shareholders do. And this all connects to all the messages we talk about on this show. And the evilness of idolatry, particularly racial idolatry, and all this ethnic idolatry. What they do is, oh, you're going against our narrative. You're an Uncle Tom. You're a coon. You're racist. You're homophobic. Oh no, you're anti-Semitic. They label you all these things, and all you really are is a truth teller. I want to play, you guys have heard of C. Dolores Tucker. Tupac wrote a song about her, Why We Call You a Bitch. C. Dolores Tucker in the early 1990s is calling all of this out, and we vilified her. C. Dolores Tucker was the Secretary of State in the 1970s in the state of Pennsylvania. This woman had some heft and gravitas and accomplishments behind her. And she's listening to this music, and she's repulsed by it, and she can tell that it's going to corrupt our culture. She hasn't figured out, like, man, this is a criminal plot. But she knows exactly where it's going. Let's play that clip.
I am here to put the nation on notice that violence perpetuated against women through the music industry in the forms of gangsta rap and misogynist lyrics will not be tolerated any longer. Principle must come before profit. A year ago, I established the National Political Congress of Black Women's Entertainment Commission, headed by Dionne Warwick, Melba Moore, Terry Rossi of Billboard magazine, and Vaughn Alexander, our director. It had one primary goal: the task of examining and developing strategies and solutions for reshaping and maintaining positive images to preserve the dignity and the heritage of our youth. Instead of continuously exposing our youth to negative media that distorts their images of male-female relationships, that undermines the stability of our families, communities, and nation by encouraging violence, abuse, and sexism as acceptable behaviors, and perpetuates the cycle of low self-esteem of African American youth. Thus, images that degrade our dignity and are an insult to our children, our families, and communities concern us too. And that includes all this gangster rap and misogynist lyrics. Music that glorifies and promotes violence with guns, knives, or drugs, and denigrates and defames women. And with the release of Snoop Doggy Dogg's debut album, Doggy Style, that includes artwork that is nothing but pornographic smut, available to any child to go in and buy with the album and with a record. That has got to stop. If you want to know why I'm on the warpath, when I saw this, I said, that's it. We march again, and we're going to keep on marching and demonstrating the truth. All of us have watched as the industry have grown. We have watched not really knowing, not really understanding, not first realizing the damage that is inherent in what some thought were merely words. Now we see the direct and indirect effects. We see the rise in murders, in abuse, in batterings, teen prostitution, and teen suicide. We hear the wailing mothers, the grieving sisters, the tormented brothers and fathers, and children planning their own funerals with pink dresses and pink caskets.
That's C. Dolores Tucker, I believe, in 1993. She was blasted. Sellout, hates herself, hates black people. Tupac made a song about why we call you a bitch. She wasn't alone. Reverend Calvin Butts out on the West Coast. I want to play you him. He was same time. And this is, I believe, an exchange between him and Ice-T, who's another one of these shareholders, someone, young kid milling around in LA, dabbling in gangster culture, dabbling in maybe drug dealing or whatever, just lost to the world. Hey, come on over here and do some rhymes and we'll pay you money to sell this prison culture to the American public, to the world. We'll sell this prison culture. Come on over here, Ice-T. We know you got no talent, but we got your back. We'll put some music behind this and we'll promote it and tell everybody it's good music. And Ice-T, we'll movies, the whole nine. We'll give you a little white girl to marry. We'll give you everything. It's all served up on a silver platter. It's what Cat Williams told you about these guys getting installed. But here's Calvin Butts and Ice-T.
I have hesitated to come down on specific artists. I have debated a few, Luke, for instance, on one television program. But I'm talking about, because I believe that all of the artists have the ability to send powerful, constructive messages and do excellent social commentary. So I'm talking about the lyrics primarily. I'm talking about lyrics that call women female dogs and whores. I'm talking about lyrics that advocate violence against each other, brother against brother, brother against sister, sister against sister. I'm talking about lyrics that reflect a kind of attitude toward a person that sees them as a piece of sexual meat rather than a human being. And I consider that as being a part of the influence that has always taken away from the development of our people. It's another trick of the media.
Another trick of the media. All of it connects. The media has sold this poison as this great influential. They're just the CNN. They're just telling what's going on in the hood. That's a lie. Or it certainly was when this all started. Now, it has been a self-fulfilling prophecy. They have generated that culture across America and across American culture. They've made it all come true that everything going on in the inner city is a reenactment of the movie Menace to Society or whatever. But that was not the case, because I'm part of this era, this generation. These guys that I'm talking about, they're the same age as me or close to. As I've shared with you, family in the hood, myself in the hood. It wasn't always like there was far more positive things going on in the hood. And so they weren't just being CNN. They were promoting a narrative. They were being storytellers on the payroll of BlackRock and Vanguard and the globalist agenda to corrode this culture, and using black communities and young black people as the lab rats for their agenda to promote a criminalized, comfortable with prison culture. People saw it. Here in that same interview with, or panel discussion with Calvin Butts, listen to this woman tell Ice-T exactly what the ramifications of this music are going to be.
See, I just don't see anything constructive as far as, making statements against rap, because first off, I don't really believe, a lot of the people that will jump on your bandwagon even listen to rap.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
I'd like to just kick in here, because I'm the oldest person around this table, and I dig rap. Okay, I dig it but it has to be positive, and it has to have a message, a social message, a cultural message, and the young people that we just saw were right on when they talked about you may not want to be a role model, but you are. You stepping out there on the stage, those young people are looking at you, and they're hearing everything you're saying, and they want to copy everything you're doing. And trust me, they will be violent because they don't understand. There are young girls who do not understand what it is to be a gangsta B, but they know that beat is slamming, and they want to be a gangsta B.
You think you understand what hardcore rap is? See, I do hardcore rap. I don't do pop rap. I don't do R&B rap. I do hardcore rap. I'm what is considered the inventor of the genre. I was the first person to ever get a sticker put on my record. I was the first person to ever be the PMRC Step 2. I'm #1 on the PMRC's list. The only reason I rap like that is because I did not know how to rap any other way. This is the life I'm living. But the audience that I attracted were the kids that did not listen to anybody else. And with an unconventional enemy, it takes unconventional tactics. So with your tactics and the positiveness that you guys want, that leaves a whole sector of people that listen to music out in the open, because they ain't gonna listen to you no matter what you say. I go to the penitentiaries, I talk to the brothers that are stuck and ain't coming out. Why? Because I talk in their language. I talk in the dialogue of the streets. You would like, in a perfect world, for things to be different, but they simply aren't.
Ice-T's just laid it all out there. I'm making music for the penitentiary. I've been given shares in the prison industrial complex, and it's my job to make music for the penitentiaries. This has been the plan from day one, and people knew exactly what they were doing. And the tactic, the ploy, always is, these people are sellouts. The people criticizing Ice-T making music for the penitentiary, not to uplift people in the penitentiary and call them to do better. I'm making music to glorify the people in the penitentiary and to justify their criminal behavior, their violent criminal behavior. And so when the woman is sitting here in the early 1990s saying like, hey, this music is going to bait young people into a form of violence that on a level we haven't seen, and you look around and here we are in 2024, and you can turn on any social media app and you can go to a website, World Star Hip Hop, that is dedicated to showing the violent criminal behavior of young black people. This music set the tone. It did this. The shareholders, BlackRock, Vanguard, This is intentional. They're profiting from it. This is a criminal conspiracy. And they take guys like Diddy, again, compromised. His father, a drug dealer, a snitch, and murdered in 1972. Diddy's compromised. Diddy grew up in a very compromised situation where he was probably sexually exploited and taught a perverse moral ethic. This is all by design. And then, hey, we got him. Hey, this guy's actually halfway smart and he fits the profile. No father, left to figure it out on his own, will do anything for money, sexually fluid. This is all by design. I want to play you two more clips, one from KRS-One that I think hammers this point very, very well and helps. I'm not making this up when I call this a criminal conspiracy among criminals, all of them. Play KRS-One.
I mean, actually, the title gangster rap doesn't even really exist because real gangsters don't rap. Gangsters. So maybe, I would go more into the idea of gangster record companies. If the real gangsters out here are the ones who own the gangster rapper. And to me, I mean, I don't know enough about the quarrel between Eazy-E and Dr. Dre to even jump into that. But what I will say is that the true gangster is the one that owns the gangster rapper. And if there is some validity to what you're saying, then I would say the true gangster would probably be right here. On another level, I go more into business. Gangster's about business. It's like business rap. It's not even gangster rap. It's business rap. If you look at some of these record companies that's out, and I'm not going to say no names because I'm doing a lot of business with a lot of you people. But what I will say is that a lot of these companies at the highest level are gangsters themselves. And if you want to get rid of gangster rap, first you got to get rid of the gangster record company. And I'll just cut it off right there. Okay.
They know what they're doing. And KRS-One used to be my favorite rapper. He's a smart guy. This is obviously early 90s. He's on Arsenio Hall's show with Eazy-E. But everybody knows the deal. This KRS-One, who's not all of his music's perfect or was perfect back in the day when he was super popular, but he was a smart dude and he laid it out in the 90s like, this is a criminal conspiracy. The record companies have hired baby wannabe gangsters to go in partnership with them in selling a gangster culture. We don't have to stick to the 90s. I'm going to play you another shareholder. Ice Cube, a shareholder. He makes movies now and he's transitioned but he's on Bill Maher's Club Random podcast, I believe last year. Lays the entire thing out.
Okay, let's take rap music.
Let's take it.
Same people who own the labels own the prisons. So
literally the same people?
Literally the same people who own the labels own private prisons. So, you know, it seems really kind of suspicious, if you want to say that word, that, you know, the records that come out are really geared to push people towards that prison industry.
But they didn't make you write those lyrics.
It's not about making somebody write the lyrics. It's about being there as guardrails to make sure certain songs make it through and certain songs don't. Certain flavors are exposed on the record. You know, some records are made by committee, meaning record company guys sit around and tell the artist, this is hot, say that, do this. We're gonna have this guy write the lyrics. We're gonna have that. So the narrative is really kind of, you know, structured and really made into what the record company want the record to be, and what the, you know, a lot of artists are frustrated with this kind of music making. You know, a lot of people, you know, feel like they're being controlled by the label. This is how they do it. Telling you what songs to sing, what hooks to do, what songs, you know, you can do your song, that's fine. That's an album cut. But you wanna, the single is what we all say is the single. So you have, you know, the record company pushing the narrative, you know, and you know, so this to me is in somewhat, you know, some social engineering going on here to make sure those prisons stay full.
None of this. It's an open secret. A group of criminals, I go back to that Godfather scene that I was talking about. They had a big meeting. And they said, we're gonna sell this gangster prison culture. And we're gonna fill up prisons, private prisons, and we're gonna make so much money filling up these prisons. This is gonna be great business. We're gonna sell this poison. And we're all gonna make money. And trust me, the rappers may go into it naively at first, but they quickly figure out, like, oh, this is the job. This is what we're doing. They quickly figure it out, and then they decide, yeah, I'd rather do this than be broke. Because they were chosen, they were selected. Because it's like, well, what else is Birdman gonna do? He's tatted up everywhere, he's a criminal, he's a thug. He's not qualified to do anything else other than crime. And so why not go participate in a crime that we've legalized? Selling criminal culture, selling prison culture. All of these guys, Ice-T, Diddy, they weren't gonna be doctors. They weren't gonna be lawyers. They weren't gonna be journalists. Many of them grew up in very difficult situations or grew up halfway idolizing the people that grew up in difficult situations. Or people just want a shortcut. Oh my God, I can curse and rhyme, do nursery school rhymes and make a bunch of money and be celebrated for it? Yeah, why not? That's more fun than going to college or building a business or doing something that elevates the culture. I'm sitting here desperate. I'm a product of this baby mama matriarchal culture. I haven't been discipled properly. No one's instilled, the academic, the school system, my parents haven't instilled the right values in me. I'm desperate. I will take that deal. Give me some stock shares so that I'm a shareholder, and I will help you sell this prison culture, and we'll all get rich together. And then you get to be Ice Cube's age and you start having some regret because you have a conscience and you look up and you go, holy cow, how did we get here? And you start letting the truth out in full. So the next part of this, and I know I'm gonna get us all the way back to Diddy and the lawsuits, but the next thing I want to explain to you is an obvious question. Why? Like, okay, I get they want to make money. I'm talking about the shareholders. I get BlackRock and Vanguard and the global elites. I get that they want to make money. But there has to be more. How much money can you have? What's the extra level of the reason why? What's the true purpose of the agenda? Making money is nice, but there's actually a deeper agenda being executed here. I'm going to get into that next. Welcome back to Beef, as I walk you through my top 50 media beefs of all time. Yeah, I'm an equal opportunity beefer. It's like, Randy, are you asleep at the wheel? Big lips are in style. I'd love to squash this beef. I mean, I was not real happy at all. I was less than thrilled. I was displeased. And now we have beef. Welcome back. Now, I think we're going to get to the shocking truth about hip hop. Because I think the explanation and the detail I went into about the criminal conspiracy and the prison industrial complex and the prisons industry, you've probably heard elements of that. You may not have seen it explained in that kind of detail and with, you know, the way it was unpacked there, but maybe those of you who've been paying close attention, you've heard about that element. Ice Cube said it, and other people have said it in different places and in different ways. But as I told you earlier, it's about storytelling and narrative and packaging things in a way that people can hear it and understand it. You see a clip and there's no context around it, it's difficult to understand. But I'm gonna suggest that some of you have heard that. But the shocking thing that I don't think you've heard is the why. Why is BlackRock, Vanguard, shareholders, the global elites, the multinational corporations, why are they funding this? Beyond, because I think it's beyond just making money. There's a much bigger agenda. And it's to promote what I'm calling Prison Planet. It's to promote a comfort with incarceration and a lack of freedom and a lack of rights and a belief that your rights and freedoms come from government and the elites. When you put someone in a prison mentality, you're turning them basically into robots. They wake up at the same time every day. They do the same thing every day. It's like time stops. The calendar is useless. Watches are useless. You're just a robot. Get up, eat this time, go do this job, hop on the sim, and we pay you very little. And so in order to understand the conclusion of today's episode of Diddy and the shocking truth about hip hop, you have to understand the word nihilism. And I get it that many of you will hear that word. Oh, everybody knows what nihilism is. Why is Whitlock talking down to his audience about? Because I'm talking to an audience that I'm assuming is like me. And sometimes we hear words that are thrown around and bandied about that we don't fully understand. We think we know, but we actually need a definition. That's how I am, even as a journalist who most people think has a good vocabulary. But nihilism, it's important that you understand that. So I want to give you guys the definition. The rejection of all religious and moral principles in the belief that life is meaningless. That's what nihilism is. And so when you reject all religious and moral principles and believe that life is meaningless, you become a very dangerous, diabolical, primitive, predatory person. Nihilism is why people are out in the streets, women in particular, but leftists and women and many men are out in the streets. Abortion is a fundamental right. Do you understand? That's a nihilistic mentality. I have a fundamental right to slaughter and destroy, to stick a tube up in my vagina and crush a baby. That's a nihilistic mentality. And people, that's a fundamental right. People go out in the streets and they convulse and, oh my God, you can't take away my right. And I can kill a baby all the way up until birth, and maybe even after birth, I can kill a baby. That's a nihilistic mentality. And when we look at young people that are attacking older people, the elderly, attacking people in brutal ways, like with no restraint. When we look at two high school girls in St. Louis that have a fight, and when one girl gets the advantage, she doesn't restrain herself, like I won the fight. No, she beats the other girl's brain into the concrete until her brain is destroyed and the woman's in a coma. That's a nihilistic mentality. That's not a routine fight and someone just, collateral damage, or that's what you get for getting in a fight. And the people defending that fight, they have a nihilistic mentality. They've rejected all religious and moral principles in the belief that life is meaningless, and they don't even know it. So, who wants a nihilistic mentality? Globalists, Freemasons, the people that believe this globe is overpopulated. The people that think we need to quit having babies and we need to make sure abortion is available on every street corner. The people that are promoting death as, up in Canada, they got assisted suicide facilities, and that's all, just death, 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 death. It's a nihilistic mentality. And so I want to play you a clip. This is Tucker Carlson talking with Chris Cuomo. He's not talking about music, but he's talking about nihilism and how even in our architecture of buildings and just all of art is turning very nihilistic. I don't think he uses the word nihilistic, but what Tucker Carlson says to Chris Cuomo, I think last week or the week before, it connects to all of this, and that everything that the globalists are doing is about promoting a nihilistic mentality. Let's play Tucker Carlson.
The public spaces are beautiful. The architecture has not been degraded by postmodern, the oppression of postmodern architecture, which is designed to demoralize and hurt you and destroy your spirit. I believe that because it's true.
Do you believe that postmodern architecture is designed to kill your spirit?
Of course. What's
Why?
the message of it? Well, look, anything that we make with our hands, it's the purest expression of our creativity. So there's a purpose behind everything that we make. There's a message behind all of it, as there is in all art. You don't paint a painting with no vision behind it. You paint a painting because you're saying something. And so buildings that are warm and human and that elevate the human spirit are pro-human. And brutalism, for example, or the IMP glass boxes that crowd every city in the United States, those are not elevating. What's the message of working in a cube in a room with a synthetic drop ceiling and drywall on the walls and fluorescent lighting ahead of you and no privacy at all? What's the message? The message is really clear. You mean nothing. You are replaceable. You are a widget in a bin awaiting assembly. You're just a cog in a machine. You have no value. And everyone kind of ignores this, like, oh, well, that's the way buildings have always been. No, that's not true. And architecture and anything made by human hands is the purest expression of the society that produced it. So we were like, oh, they're handicrafts. No, they're not handicrafts. They're a visible and tangible sign of who you are, not just as a person, but corporately as a society. And if you live in a place that creates nothing beautiful and doesn't provide people uplifting buildings to live and work in, that's a very sick and dark society. And it wasn't always that way.
So, music, rap music, but just music, wasn't always this way. Why did it turn so dark and nihilistic? And what is the darkest, most nihilistic place on earth? I would argue it's prison. If you want to communicate the message to someone that you're worthless, that your life is meaningless, that there is no God, lock them in a prison cell. Lock them up with a group of men that have all adopted a nihilistic approach, and they will take advantage of each other at every turn, sexually, physically, financially. Prison is a nihilistic place and culture. And you have Ice-T and others. I'm making music for prison, to speak to prisoners. I'm making music that justifies their nihilism. And so let's go back to the climate control crowd and the world is overpopulated crowd and their agenda. How can we get rid of people? Because people are useless to the elites. They're building a society that doesn't work for the overwhelming majority of people. Technology is taking away the jobs that used to provide men and women and families a purpose and a lifestyle and just confidence. My father didn't graduate high school. He joined the Army, came out of the Army, got a job at Chrysler on the assembly line. You could make a good living, good union job at that time in the 60s and 70s. My mother, AT&T, Western Electric, good union job. She could earn a living. She just graduated high school, didn't go to college. There were all of these people that are still out there in America and across the globe that don't want to go be indoctrinated at one of these leftist academic institutions, don't really want to go to school and get all of that brainwashed higher education. There used to be manual labor and manufacturing jobs that they could do that would allow them to live out the American dream or whatever level of dream they wanted to live out. Technology and robots and artificial intelligence are making human beings useless. What do you do with useless human beings? You put them in prison. And if you can't put them all in a physical prison, you put them in a mental prison, and then you lock them in their tiny apartments or small homes, or as homeless people, you lock them up that way. And then you move into gated communities with your own private security force, and you allow all the people that you have in these so-called free prisons. You know, they're not in a facility, but they might as well be. They don't have a job. They don't have a purpose. Their ability to vacation and take care of their family, it's all been stolen from them. And so what you want to do is infect them with a prison mentality. You want to normalize prison culture and prison values. Because you have all of these useless people that you've stolen their way of life. And then so if you can't, you try to stop them from reproducing. And so other than abortion is one way to stop them from reproducing. That works. Here's another way. Get them to incorporate prison values and prison culture into their worldview. What prison is nihilistic. What do you think the homosexuality rate is in prison, men and women's? Do you think it's more than in the free society? Can you reproduce scissoring? Can you reproduce entering someone from the rear? It can't be done. And so this whole prison mentality and the promotion of the sexual fluidity, the homosexuality of prison culture that we see everywhere. What are these allegations about Diddy? He's very sexually fluid. He's inviting male prostitutes and other sex workers in to have sex with him and others. The entire rap industry is flooded with it. The entire entertainment industry flooded with it. They're promoting nihilism. Tucker Carlson sees it in the buildings that we're building. I see it in the music that we're promoting. Anybody that takes their blinders off can see that, like, man, everything that this secular left is for is anti-reproduction and it's anti-freedom. How do you get people to devalue freedom? Why are we sitting here having a debate about the appropriateness of freedom of speech? Because our culture has devalued freedom as we've embraced a prison mindset and a prison culture. None of this is on accident. They're making money off of it. They figured out, like, oh, if we can incarcerate more people and have these human robots sitting in prisons, private prisons, that we can make money off of. And then if we can flood the culture with a prison mentality, we can take rights away from them because prisoners have no rights. Hey man, you go out here and work for 12 cents an hour. The Constitution does not really apply to people in prison. Your rights come from the warden when you're in prison. When you're not in prison, your rights come from God. And so how do you get people to start, man, my rights don't come from God, they come from the government. You imprison their mentality. You give them a prisoner's mentality. You make music specifically glorifying and justifying a prison mentality. You convince them any dispute can be settled and perhaps should be settled. Death by combat or trial by combat. And we look out and wonder why our young people are so much more depraved and violent. What have we poured into them with music? Other than the written word, music, I think, is the most powerful communication tool ever known to man. It writes on your soul. It changes your heart. It changes your mentality. It's so much easier to remember those prison values and words and things that are being taught to you through music. This is not an accident. This is all intentional. You stakeholders, we stakeholders, the globalists, the shareholders have made enormous decisions that are having incredible impact on us. And one of the biggest, and again, is make sure you understand this. Don't think you're not affected by it. Oh, they just did that to the black people. They've done it to all of us. When they let a virus loose, whether it's COVID or gangsta rap, it's coming to your neighborhood too. Drugs, it's in your neighborhood. This whole criminal mentality and criminal culture we have It's in your neighborhood. Your kids, you're being affected by it. You're becoming more nihilistic and you don't even realize it. That's why you shrug your shoulders and go, oh, abortion, I let women decide. That doesn't really involve me. So just killing babies in the womb, well, that doesn't really involve me. I got nothing to say on that. Okay, let's say does that stand in place? Let's walk it back to 1832. Slavery, that doesn't really involve me. Let them decide. Would anybody allow that mentality today? That excuse? No. Why do we allow it as it relates to this nihilism, this abortion, this corruption of our culture? We're being, the IQ in a prison, how much lower do you think it is than in the free world? And why do you think all the rap music, they misspell words, they present themselves as retarded, they platform retarded people, they can barely put sentences together, blah, 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 that's what I'm saying, dog, go. Can't spell, can't do anything. It's a dumbing down of society. It's a retardation of society. It's a legalization of a mentality that leads to our destruction and leads us to think that freedom's not that important. It's not worth dying for. It's not worth dying for, freedom. Yeah, I know our ancestors did. That's them. I don't need their level of freedom. I'm happy in this little area that they've cut out for me. I'm happy with this level of freedom that Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and whoever else is in the government, that they've carved out for me. I don't really value freedom. That's what this music has set off. It's affecting all of us. And it sounds, country music, rock music, blah. Now, this is a specific form of music that is extremely nihilistic, that has been promoted and chosen and selected. Why is it? It's the most popular music in America or in the world. That's not organic. It was chosen to be. Why do you think that Dr. Dre and Snoop, y'all come perform at halftime? And if anybody doesn't like it, they're racist. This is all by design. And so they take someone like P. Diddy, very sexually fluid, and they give him power and money and fame to go out and sell prison culture and prison values. And so tomorrow, I'm going to go back and more into Diddy and just examining him and these lawsuits and what it all means, what it says about him. But I wanted to give you context to understand why someone like this, why someone this vile would be placed in such a position of importance and be tolerated for so long. And I want to just give you a taste of just Diddy and what's in these allegations and lawsuits and what they signify. That Diddy has a son, Justin, who I believe now is 29 years old. And in the Rodney Jones lawsuit, the Rodney Jones lawsuit, he says that Diddy and his son, Justin, participated in these freak-offs and this sexual perversion, and that Diddy's son was a key recruiter and a key element in Diddy's sexual perversion. How could this be? What man would involve his son in the sexual molestation allegedly of minors, of men and women, would have his son as part of getting the drugs and recruiting people and bringing male prostitutes and sex workers? Who would do this? And so then you have to ask the question, well, would he really do this with his son? And there are some people well, is that Diddy's son? Justin. I'm just saying, some people ask the question. Because Diddy had a security guard that worked with him in the early 2000s. His name's Anthony Wolf Jones. And he died, I believe was killed, a month before Justin was born. And people have run facial recognition deals on Diddy and Justin and Anthony Wolf Jones and Justin. And could we put those pictures back up? Anthony Jones is I believe at the bottom, and Justin is on the right. Am I correct about that? Because I'm kind of far away from the screen. And then there's the second one. There's Anthony Wolf Jones, and there's Justin. And according to these like facial recognition, Anthony Wolf Jones looks more like Diddy's son Justin than P. Diddy. They kind of look more, same nose, same kind of head structure. And this guy used to work for Diddy in security, but was killed in like a month before Justin was born. I don't know what it means, but I would say that who's more likely for you to involve in your sexual perverted acts with minors and men and other things? Would you really do this with your flesh and blood son? Maybe you would. Maybe Diddy's that kind of depraved, or maybe these allegations are all false. But if he wasn't your son, and Anthony Wolf Jones is just one of many people with close connections to Diddy who are dead, and who's, I don't believe they've ever solved the murder of Anthony Wolf Jones. It's just interesting. We'll stop there for today. I want to thank you guys. Oh, no, we will not stop there, because I want to play one last thing. Because the allegations about Justin's involvement in Diddy's sexual perverted escapades, they come out of the Rodney Jones lawsuit. And so I want to end by playing Rodney Jones and him talking about fearing for his life. Let's play that clip.
Hello, everyone. Until further notice, I would not be performing at any gigs or anything like that. For security reasons, my family, friends, and everyone close to me just feels like there's a lot of potential threats, and everybody's just telling me what he's allegedly capable of, and it's very scary for myself, and it has me worried about my kids, and just sleeping with anxiety and different things like that. So just moving forward, just want to pause on everything until we know that it's clear and safe for me to come back outside of work. I appreciate you all for your love and support, and everybody that knows me, etc. Thank you so much. Love.
That's Rodney Jones. He's made some very serious allegations about Diddy. We'll get into it tomorrow.
freedom. Came like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all these moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on a corner, never been alone. I'll break my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, no deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want freedom. I wanna be. I just